She was sold for $100,000. Now she's the wife of a billionaire CEO. Unbelievable journey. She was supposed to be a secret. A girl sold for one night. Just to save her dying mother. But when billionaire Nathaniel West paid $100 for her, he didn't touch her, didn't ask her name, just said, "I need peace." 3 years later, she still lives in his penthouse. Without a title, without love, without a future. But when his glamorous ex comes back, and his powerful mother tries to destroy her, Ava realizes, she was never just a girl for one night. She became the one thing he couldn't buy, and couldn't let go. What happens when a man with everything risks it all for the woman no one thought deserved him? Subscribe now, because this love story will leave you breathless. Sold for one night, but he couldn't let her go. New York City, winter. A blizzard rages outside a luxury penthouse overlooking Central Park. Inside, the lights are dim, the air is heavy, silent. You're back? I've already drawn your bath. It's 108 degrees. Just the way you like it. Standing barefoot on the marble floor, Ava Carter, 22, gently holds out a towel. Her voice is soft, almost mechanical. She doesn't meet his eyes. She's wearing a simple white silk robe that barely hides the tension in her slender frame. Across from her, Nate West, 35, steps in from the cold. A self-made billionaire. Cold, commanding. He removes his coat slowly, eyes never leaving hers. "Did you have a tough day, Mr. West?" "Not tougher than yours, I'm sure." There's a pause. She forces a smile. "I don't mind. For you, I'll endure anything." Nate watches her. His jaw clenches. Something in her words bothers him. Or maybe it's how willingly she says them. Like she's used to pain. "Ava, do you always say that to the men who pay you?" Her smile fades. She lowers her eyes. "You paid $10 for one night. But I never expected it to last 3 years." 3 years earlier, Ava stands in the corner of a dim hospital hallway in Queens. Her mother's medical bill is clutched tightly in her hand. The total, $86,400. She's crying silently, hopeless, desperate. "You have one option," the nurse had whispered. "There's a private auction tonight. Girls sell one night of their company to elite bidders. No names, no strings, just one night." Ava hesitated, but her mom was dying, and her family had abandoned them long ago. She wore a mask, a silk black dress. She walked into the ballroom of the Harrington Hotel, shaking. That's where he saw her for the first time. Nate West wasn't there to buy anyone. He was there out of boredom, or perhaps curiosity. But when his eyes met hers, wide, vulnerable, terrified, it wasn't lust that struck him. It was something else, something he hadn't felt since before money hardened him. He raised his hand. $100. The room went silent. She was his for the night. Back to present. Ava pours wine into a crystal glass. She hands it to Nate without looking up. "You gave up $10 million from Melissa Lane just to keep me." "Why?" "Because you didn't ask for anything. You just stayed." He brushes a strand of hair from her face. She flinches. "Do you still think of yourself as mine?" She pauses, swallows. "I don't know if I ever was." The wineglass slips slightly in her hand. "If you ever meet someone more appropriate, a woman from your world, born to wealth and privilege, I'll disappear. Quietly. I won't hold you back." He slams the glass down. It shatters. "You're not a thing to be held or dropped. And don't talk about my world. The truth is, I never belonged in it either." A gala night, Manhattan. A headline flashes on the news. Billionaire Nathaniel West spotted with socialite Emily Harrington. Romance rumors spark. Ava watches from their apartment window, clutching the wine glass he left untouched. She whispers, "I know I'm nothing but a secret. A woman bought for one night who stayed too long." Tears fall. She wipes them away, begins packing. "I should have known. The way she smiled, the way she served me. It wasn't just loyalty. It was love, but I was too afraid to call it that. And by the time I realized it, she was already gone." Nate storms into a 5-star restaurant where Emily Harrington and several high society friends are laughing. Suddenly he stops. At the far end of the room, Ava, in a waiter's uniform, carrying trays, serving drinks. Their eyes lock. The room fades to silence. To be continued. She sold her first night to save her mother. But he bought more than her body. He found the only woman who ever truly saw him. And when the past comes crashing back, love must fight to survive the brutal. Session 1. The night Ava sold her soul. Queens, New York, 3 years ago. It was 2:14 a.m. when Ava Carter realized she had no other choice. The hallway at Queens General was dim, the fluorescent lights above her flickering like they, too, were giving up. In her hand was a medical invoice that might as well have been a death sentence. $86,400 for her mother's surgery. Without it, her only family in the world wouldn't survive the winter. She hadn't eaten in a day. Her jacket was too thin. Her hope, even thinner. "There is one way," said Nurse Olivia, a woman with a kind heart and tired eyes. "Not ideal, but it's fast, clean, and rich men pay good money." Ava looked up, confused. "You mean, there's a private event tonight? Manhattan, discreet, girls are introduced, men bid, one night, no names. Are you saying I sell myself?" Olivia didn't blink. "I'm saying you save your mother." Harrington Hotel, Manhattan, midnight. Ava stood behind crimson velvet curtains in a dress she couldn't afford, heels that didn't fit, and a mask that barely hid the fear in her eyes. She'd never seen so many chandeliers in her life. Gold dripped from the ceilings. Champagne bubbled in crystal flutes. Laughter floated through the ballroom like smoke. The man beside her, the auction coordinator, whispered coldly, "You're up next. Number 17, first timer. That sells well." Her stomach turned. She was just a number now. "Gentlemen," the host announced, "our next guest, untouched, unknown, and unforgettable." A spotlight hit her face. She took one step forward, and then another, and then she saw him, standing alone near the back of the room, untouched by the noise or glitter, a man in a black suit, black tie, black heart. Nathaniel West, tech billionaire, CEO of Westtech, worth $9.7 billion, and yet somehow looked like the loneliest man in the room. His eyes locked on hers. Steel gray, unreadable. He raised one hand. $100, he said flatly. The host stammered, "Sir, bidding starts at 20. I said 100. Tonight, cash." The room went dead silent. No one else raised a finger. Sold. Just like that. The West Penthouse, Upper East Side, 2:07 a.m. Ava stood inside the penthouse of Westtech's reclusive CEO, staring at a skyline she'd only seen in magazines. Her heart beat like a drum in her chest. She expected him to want her, right away. Right there. But Nathaniel West didn't even look at her. He poured himself a drink, loosened his tie, and walked past her without a word. She stood frozen. "What do you want me to do?" she finally asked, voice trembling. He stopped, turned to face her. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, "Take off the mask." She did. Their eyes met again, only this time, without layers. He looked at her like she wasn't just a body. "You're scared," he said. She didn't respond. "Don't be. I didn't pay for your body tonight. I paid for your silence." That threw her off. Silence? He sat down on the edge of the couch, staring out over the city. "I've had everything a man can buy. Except peace. One night of quiet. No lies. No expectations." Sounded priceless. But the auction? That wasn't for sex. He muttered. It was for escape. Ava blinked. This wasn't the predator she'd prepared herself for. 3:12 a.m., the sofa. She couldn't sleep. Not with the weight of the money. Not with the man who just handed her $100,000 like it was pocket change, and didn't even touch her. She walked quietly into the living room. Nathaniel was half asleep on the couch, his arm draped over his forehead. He looked young like this. Human. There was a folded blanket nearby. She hesitated, then walked over and gently draped it over him. He stirred. "Why are you still awake?" he asked. Eyes still closed. "I couldn't leave." He moved his arm, now fully awake. "You don't have to stay. You got what you came for." She shook her head. "That's not why I'm here anymore." He studied her for a long time, then said softly, "Sit, just for tonight." She did. They said nothing else. The world outside kept turning. 6:02 a.m., sunrise over Manhattan. He was still asleep. She stood by the window, watching the city wake up, cars honking, sunlight hitting the glass like fire. Her phone buzzed. A message from the hospital. "Surgery approved. Payment received. We'll begin prepping at 9 a.m. Thank you." She burst into tears. Not from shame, but from the overwhelming relief. That morning, before she left, she turned to look at Nathaniel one last time. Still asleep, still silent, she whispered, not expecting an answer. You paid for one night. But you bought more than that. You bought a piece of my soul. Session 2. 3 years a secret. The West penthouse. 3 years had passed. From the outside, Ava Carter lived a dream most girls would envy: trips to Italy. Private chefs. Designer dresses hanging in a walk-in closet bigger than her childhood bedroom. But the truth? She was a ghost in a glass palace. There were no labels, no titles, no promises, just silent nights, and a man who never let her go, nor fully held her close. Ava's life inside the golden cage. Every morning, Ava woke at 6 a.m. She prepared Nate's breakfast: soft-boiled eggs, black coffee, no cream, no sugar, and oatmeal with blueberries. She knew the precise temperature he liked his bathwater: 108 degrees Fahrenheit. His favorite shirts were pressed and hung in a specific order. His suits matched by shade. His cufflinks set out in pairs. Even on days he never wore them. "You take care of me like a wife," he said once, slipping on his jacket without looking back. "But I'm not one," she whispered after the door closed. He had never said the word love, but he never let her go either. The threat appears: Melissa Lane. The first crack came in the form of a headline. Nathaniel West spotted dining with socialite Melissa Lane. Romance rumors spark. Ava saw it on her phone as she folded laundry. Melissa Lane, the only daughter of the Lane real estate empire. Born into wealth, polished, dangerous, everything Ava wasn't. That night, when Nate came home late, he found her in the kitchen, stirring soup she had no appetite for. "You were with her," Ava said quietly. He didn't deny it. "It was a business dinner." "She touched your hand," he sighed, removing his coat. "Is this jealousy?" "No, it's clarity." He paused. "I told you from the beginning. This arrangement had limits. I wasn't expecting love, Nathaniel, but I didn't expect to be replaced either." Silence filled the space between them like poison. The offer: $10 million to leave. 2 days later, Melissa Lane showed up, unannounced, uninvited, unapologetic. Ava opened the door and froze. Melissa was everything she'd expected: sleek blonde hair, red lipstick, arrogance worn like perfume. "You must be Ava." Melissa smiled sweetly, stepping inside without permission. She placed an envelope on the counter. "There's $10 million in here. Take it, walk away, let the man move on." Ava stared at her. "You think I stayed for the money?" Melissa laughed. "You're a waitress from Queens. Let's not pretend." Ava's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "I've been here for 3 years. I know his scars, his habits, his moods. Where were you when he couldn't sleep for days? When he broke down on the anniversary of his brother's death? I was there. I stayed." Melissa rolled her eyes. "Everyone has a price. Then you don't know me. Because even if you gave me $100 million, I'd still choose to stay." "Stupid girl," Melissa hissed. "People like you don't belong in our world." "Maybe not," Ava said, stepping forward. "But he chose me, not you. Nathaniel finds out." That night, Nate came home early. Ava wasn't in the penthouse. Instead, he found the envelope on the counter, unopened, and a note beside it. "She tried to buy my silence. But I'd rather lose everything than lose myself." She came back an hour later, soaked from the rain, her face pale, her eyes exhausted. "Did she come here?" he asked. She nodded. "What did she say?" "That I'm a fool for thinking you'd ever choose someone like me." "And what did you say?" She looked him straight in the eyes. "That I'm not yours to be auctioned anymore. Not again." "Are you leaving me? You never gave me anything to stay for." That broke something in him. He took a deep breath, walked toward her, but she backed away. "Ava, 3 years. Nate, 3. And you've never once told me what I am to you. You're the only peace I've ever known. Then why does it feel like I'm always seconds away from being discarded?" He had no answer. Later that night, Ava sat on the balcony, legs curled up, wrapped in his sweater. The city lights blinked below like a heartbeat. Nate watched her from inside, drink untouched in his hand. He'd never known how to love, but for the first time in his life, he wanted to learn. The line that changes everything. He stepped outside, knelt beside her, and whispered, "I don't know how to be what you need, but if you give me the chance, I'll spend the rest of my life trying." Ava looked at him, eyes glassy. "And if I fall in love with you, then I'll never let you go." Session 3. The return of the first love, Stacy Gu's shadow. Morning after the rain, Ava Carter woke up to silence. Not the comforting kind, the tense, loaded silence that usually came before a storm. Nathaniel West wasn't in bed beside her. She found him in his office. Suit already on, hair slightly damp, tie half done, eyes glued to his phone. "You're leaving early," she said softly, holding his coffee. He didn't answer right away. Then, "Someone's coming back to New York." His tone was clipped, cold. Ava tilted her head. "Who?" A pause. "Stacy." She didn't need a last name. Everyone in Nate's circle knew it. Stacy Gu, the elegant, brilliant, high society daughter of a fashion dynasty. The woman Nate was supposed to marry years ago, until she vanished from the country, and from his life. The one name Ava had never dared to speak aloud. Westech headquarters, lobby flooded with reporters. "Miss Gu, over here. Why did you return after 5 years? Are you here for Nathaniel West?" Stacy stepped out of a black Bentley in 6-inch heels, wearing a white coat and a cold smile. Flawless, untouchable. "I'm just here to reclaim what's mine," she said sweetly, before walking past the cameras. The West penthouse. Ava's first encounter with Stacy. That evening, Ava was setting the table for dinner when the elevator pinged. She wasn't expecting anyone. The doors opened, and there she was. Stacy Gu. Glossier than the magazines, colder than the winter wind. "You must be Ava." Stacy smiled, stepping into the penthouse like it was hers. "You make a lovely housekeeper." Ava didn't blink. "I'm not the housekeeper." "Of course not," Stacy replied, setting her purse down. "You're just temporary." Before Ava could respond, Nate appeared, stopping in his tracks. "Stacy," he said, low and cautious. She turned, smile widening. "Nate." Ava stepped back as they hugged, though Nate's arms remained stiff. "We should talk," he said to Stacy. "Privately?" she asked. He glanced at Ava, who was frozen in place. "No," Ava said suddenly, voice sharper than she intended. "I'll go." And just like that, she left the two of them alone in the home she had built. Moment by moment, for 3 silent years, Stacy's game begins. In the days that followed, Ava became invisible again. Stacy appeared everywhere. At the office, at events, at brunches Ava was never invited to. Paparazzi headlines exploded. Westech CEO seen again with heiress Stacy Gu. Reconciliation or rekindling? Every time Ava scrolled through her phone, her chest tightened. When Nate came home, he was quiet, distant. He said it was business. But Stacy wasn't business. She was history. Ava tried to stay composed. She tried to be graceful. Until the day she walked into the living room and saw a velvet box on the coffee table. A ring box. The confrontation, Ava breaks. That night, Ava waited in the dark. Nate walked in, loosened his tie, and found her standing by the window. "What is this?" she asked, holding up the box. He froze. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me why I saw your arm around her in front of half the city." She needed support. "I need support," she snapped, her voice cracking. "But no one ever wraps their arm around me in public." "Ava, what are we?" "Nate, after 3 years, what am I? A secret? A charity case? A warm body in a cold bed?" His face darkened. "You're more than that and you know it." "Then say it," she whispered, stepping closer. "Say what I am to you." He looked away, and that silence was louder than anything he could have said. Stacy makes her move. The next day, Ava received an envelope under the bedroom door. Inside was a note, handwritten in elegant script. "Dear Ava, I know what it feels like to love Nathaniel West. I also know how quickly he forgets. When I left, he fell apart. But now that I'm back, he doesn't need broken things anymore. Pack your bags. Make room for someone who never left his heart. S." Ava tore the note in half, but her hands were trembling. Ava walks out, but Nate follows. She packed quietly. No goodbye, no tears. But as the elevator doors began to close, Nate appeared. "Don't," he said. "Why not?" she whispered. "I'm not enough. I never have been." He grabbed the doors before they could shut. "You're more than enough." "Then why'd I always feel like I'm not?" He exhaled. "Because I've never learned how to keep something I didn't pay for." "You didn't pay for me. You found me. And I'm not losing you again." She stared at him. Her throat burned. "Then prove it." The bombshell truth. Later that night, After Ava left the penthouse to stay with her friend Sasha, Nate made a call. "Edwin," he said to his assistant, "I need everything you can find on Stacy Gu. Where she's been, what she's done, who she's with. May I ask why, sir? Because the woman who left me 5 years ago is not the same one trying to crawl back in now." Session 4. Secrets and Scandals. The First Love's Hidden Agenda. Nathaniel's private office, Midtown Manhattan. The city lights blinked like static outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Westech Tower. Nate stood with a glass of scotch in hand. His reflection fractured across the glass. His mind kept drifting back to Ava's last words. Then prove it. He had said nothing, but now, he was ready to prove everything. "Edwin," Nate said into the phone. "I want full surveillance on Stacy Gu. Tap into her travel records. Financials. The works." "Understood, sir," came Edwin's voice. And Nate added, colder this time, "If she's lying, I want to be the first to know." Ava's temporary safe haven. Ava stared at the ceiling fan spinning above her bed. Sleep didn't come. Her heart felt like it had been wrapped in barbed wire. She didn't know if she was more angry with Nate for not choosing her publicly, or with herself for still hoping he would. "Girl," Sasha said from the kitchen, "you didn't walk away from a man. You walked out of a cage. Then why'd I still feel trapped?" 5 years ago, in a West Coast psychiatric facility, Stacy Gu scribbled into a journal violently. The nurses whispered, "Daughter of a billionaire, diagnosed manic depressive, delusions of grandeur, refuses medication." She had a plan, and it started with a name. Nathaniel West. Stacy's hotel suite, Manhattan. The suite smelled of white roses and revenge. Stacy Gu sat on the balcony, champagne in hand, laptop open, browsing articles about Nate. She wasn't back to fall in love. She was back to finish what she started. In her hand, a manila envelope. Inside, surveillance photos of Ava, Westech shareholder documents, an unsigned NDA with Ava's name already typed in. She smiled, then made a call. "Charles, it's me. Phase 2 begins tomorrow." Nate's office. Next morning, Edwin walked in, tension in his eyes. "Sir, I pulled the background you requested on Miss Gu." Nate flipped open the file. As he scanned page after page, something shifted in his expression. Stacy had checked into a private hospital in Oregon under a fake name. She'd liquidated $5 million from her trust fund 2 weeks before returning. She had recent connections with Charles Lane, Melissa's father and Nate's business rival. "She's not back for love," Nate muttered. "She's back to burn this company to the ground." Sasha's apartment. That night, Ava returned from a walk and found her front door slightly ajar. She froze. The lamp inside was knocked over. Her laptop, gone. Her sketchbook, missing. Panic surged. Her hands trembled as she dialed Nate. "Someone's been in here. Don't move. I'm coming now." 15 minutes later, Nate pulled up, eyes wild with fury. He took one look at Ava and pulled her into his arms without a word. "You're safe. That's all that matters." "You think it was Stacy?" "I know it was." That same night, Ava stood barefoot on the cold marble floor. Now inside the place she once called home. Nate paced across the living room like a caged lion. "She's working with Charles Lane. She's targeting the company through me. You were never supposed to get caught in the crossfire." Ava folded her arms, her voice low. "But I did." He walked over, cupped her face in both hands. "That was my mistake. Your biggest mistake," she whispered. "Was thinking I needed protecting instead of trusting me to stand beside you." A beat. Then he said something he'd never said before. "I love you." Ava's breath caught. "Say it again. I love you. I don't want secrets between us. Not anymore." And for the first time, the walls came down. Next morning, Nate walked into the emergency shareholder meeting with one goal. But she was already there. Sitting, smiling. "Nathaniel," she purred, "you look tense. Did you sleep well?" "I don't sleep around snakes." Gasps from the board. She stood. "Let me make it simple. You have a choice. Give me 25% of your company, or I'll leak those intimate photos of you and your little charity case to the press. Let the world know you've been keeping a mistress in a penthouse funded by investors." Nate didn't flinch. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out the same photos Stacy thought she had the only copy of. "Try again. I had Edwin hack your cloud 2 days ago." She paled. He leaned in. "You never should have touched her." Central Park, later that day. Ava sat on a bench, sunlight filtering through the trees, flipping through her sketchbook. The pages were still blank. She hadn't drawn since Stacy arrived. Nate appeared beside her, quiet for a moment. Then, "I've cleaned house. She's gone. For good? The board voted to issue a restraining order. And she's being investigated for corporate blackmail." Ava closed the book. "Good." But Nate wasn't done. "There's something else I need to do." He pulled out a slim black box. A ring. "No more shadows. No more arrangements. No more cages. I don't want to hide you. I want the world to know who you are to me. Ava Carter, will you?" Ava smiled gently, placing a hand on his. "Ask me again when there's no threat chasing us. Then I'll ask you every day until there isn't." One step closer. That night, Ava drew again for the first time in months. A new sketch. Nate's hand, holding hers, over a map of New York. She titled it, Reclaimed. Session 5. The past never sleeps. The sunlight spilled across the penthouse hardwood floors. Warm and golden, Ava stood quietly near the window, watching the city breathe below. She clutched her tea mug with both hands, her knuckles slightly pale. Behind her, Nate was adjusting his tie in the mirror, half smiling. "You sure you don't want to come?" he asked, already slipping on his tailored blazer. "It's your world, not mine," she replied, voice soft but steady. He turned to her, stepping closer. "You are my world, Ava." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her heart was elsewhere, buried under the weight of the envelope that had appeared beneath the door that morning. No return address, no signature, just her name on the front, Ava Carter. Inside was a single photograph. She recognized the sterile white of that hospital bed instantly, the dull green of the gown, the wires on her arms. Her face looked young, fragile, too thin, and unconscious. 7 years ago, Charleston. Below the image, a message, typed. "Does Nathaniel know who you really are?" She had stared at it for hours. It had been a lifetime ago. A life she thought she had buried beneath the concrete of New York. But someone knew, and someone wanted Nate to know too. Later that morning, Nate stood at the elevator doors, about to leave for a shareholders' brunch when he glanced back. She waved him off with a smile. The second the doors shut, Ava's knees gave out. She collapsed onto the couch, the photo still clenched in her hand. The ghosts were back, and this time, they were louder than ever. At Westech headquarters, Nate sat in the boardroom, surrounded by Manhattan's most powerful executives, nodding through financial reports he wasn't listening to. Edwin, his right-hand man, walked in, urgently, and without hesitation, leaned in to whisper something in his ear. Nate's gaze darkened as Edwin slid the printed photo onto the table. Everything in the room went silent in his mind. He barely registered the meeting ending, barely heard his own footsteps as he strode to his car, barely breathed as he climbed the elevator back to his penthouse, expecting, hoping, to see her curled up on the couch. But the apartment was empty. Only her sketchbook lay open on the glass coffee table, pages fluttering in the breeze of the AC. One had been torn out. On the back of another, written in her delicate script, "I didn't know how to tell you, so I ran. Again. If you want the truth, meet me where it all started." He knew where that was. Charleston. Ava had been 17, a bright art student with dreams of escaping her broken home. But behind the curtains of her perfect GPA and scholarships, there were bruises, some visible, most not. Her mother had trusted the wrong man. Ava had paid the price. And one night, after everything shattered, Ava had been found unconscious in a motel bathroom. The doctors called it an overdose. She never told Nate any of this. By the time he reached the private airfield, his jaw was clenched so tightly it hurt. Ava stood at the water's edge near the old docks of Charleston, a hood over her head, hair catching the wind. She looked up as his car pulled in. "You found me," she said, voice small. "I never stop looking," he replied, stepping out. They stared at each other for a long moment. The wind carried sea salt and pain. "I didn't know how to say it," Ava whispered. "It wasn't just an overdose. That man my mother dated, he..." Her voice broke. Nate crossed to her and wrapped his arms around her, pulling her in tightly. She didn't sob. She didn't shake. She just stood there, like she'd been holding her breath for 7 years. "You should have told me," he said quietly against her hair. "I was afraid if you knew where I came from, you'd stop seeing me for who I am now." I never saw you as where you came from. I saw you as the woman who made a cold penthouse feel like home." Ava finally looked up. "But someone's digging. They want to use this against you." "They already tried," he said. "They sent that photo to me this morning. And now I know." She closed her eyes, breathing him in. "So what happens now?" Nate pulled away, just enough to see her face. Now we go home." She blinked. "Just like that? I don't care who you were. I care who you are with me. But you're bored, you're investors." "To hell with them," he said. "Let them come for me. But no one gets to come for you." A tear slipped down her cheek, and Nate kissed it away. Back in Manhattan, as their jet landed, Edwin was waiting at the hangar. "Grave, there's something else," he said as they stepped off the plane. "The photo? It wasn't sent from any rival. It was traced back to someone else." "Who?" Nate asked. Edwin hesitated. "Your mother." The air froze. Ava's grip on Nate's hand tightened. Nate stared ahead, rage flickering like lightning behind his eyes. "She sent it," he repeated. "She did. And sir, she's also been in contact with Stacy again." That night, Nate didn't sleep. He sat beside Ava's bed, watching her breathe, hand in hers. The woman who had survived so much. The woman who had built herself from ashes and pain. He thought he had enemies. But now? They had declared war. And this time, he wasn't going to play defense. Session 6. A Mother's Betrayal. The West Penthouse. 3:17 a.m. The city was asleep, but Nathaniel West wasn't. He stood by the tall window. Fists clenched, jaw locked, the skyline reflecting off the glass like broken truths. Behind him, Ava stirred in bed, sensing the storm in him even in sleep. Her presence calmed him, but tonight, nothing could tame the rage burning in his chest. His mother, Evelyn West, the woman who had built an empire beside her late husband, a queen of Manhattan society. Polished, ruthless, and now, corrupted by pride, ambition, and an unwillingness to see her son love someone beneath their world. She sent that photo. Edwin's voice echoed in his mind. She contacted Stacy. She wanted to remind you who Ava used to be. Nathaniel's hand slammed the windowsill. She wanted to destroy her. Evelyn West 4 days ago. Inside her Upper East Side brownstone, Evelyn West sipped tea from a porcelain cup imported from Paris. She didn't look up as her butler entered with a manila envelope. "It's done, ma'am," he said, placing it beside her. Evelyn opened it slowly. The photo of Ava, unconscious, broken, taken years ago in Charleston, stared back at her. "So delicate," she murmured, "so easily shattered." She picked up her phone. "Stacy, you may proceed. Make sure it looks like it came from a rival. We cannot let that girl become Westek's future." Present, Nate's study. The clock struck 4 a.m. Nate picked up the old photo again, then placed it into the fireplace. The flames devoured it without hesitation, unlike his mother, who clung to the past like a weapon. Ava stepped in quietly behind him, wearing one of his oversized shirts, hair still tousled. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. He turned, eyes tired but full of fire. "I need to ask you something," he said, voice hoarse. "Do you trust me?" Ava nodded. "With everything. Then let me protect you my way. Just once." She stepped closer. "What are you planning?" He kissed her forehead. "War." Later that day, Evelyn's estate. Evelyn's living room was a museum of wealth. Classical music played softly in the background. She looked up as Nathaniel entered unannounced. "My dear boy." She smiled thinly. "To what do I owe?" He threw a folder on the table. Surveillance photos, transaction records, a timeline, her connection to Stacy, the envelope with Ava's past. "I know everything," Nate said, voice icy. Evelyn didn't flinch. "I only did what any mother would do to protect her son." "From what? Love? From scandal? From disgrace? From being dragged down by a girl with scars deeper than your understanding?" Nathaniel stepped closer. "You think scars make someone weak?" Ava's scars made her stronger than anyone in this room. "She's not one of us." "No," he said. "She's better." Evelyn stood, offended. "You'll regret choosing her over your own blood." "I didn't choose her over my blood," he whispered. "I chose her because of it. Because blood isn't always family, and family doesn't betray you." He turned to leave. "And if you ever come near her again, I'll destroy everything you built." Meanwhile, Westek HQ. Stacy Gu strutted into the executive floor, ready for her next play. She was wearing a white Chanel suit and the smirk of someone who thought the game was already won. But something was wrong. Her name was no longer on the security list. The receptionist stood up, nervous. "Ms. Gu, I was instructed not to." "Not to what?" she snapped. "Let you in. The board has issued a formal ban. You've been permanently removed from all Westech operations." She scoffed. "On whose authority?" "Mr. West's. Effective immediately." That evening, the rooftop. Nathaniel and Ava sat side by side on the penthouse rooftop. A soft breeze brushing through her hair. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, just herself, and he had never seen her more radiant. "I know your mother did it," Ava said quietly. He didn't respond. "I'm not going to let her come between us." "Not again." "She won't," Nate replied. She lost. A pause. "You sure?" she asked. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the ring box again. "The same one from before. She tried to use your past to erase your future. But the only thing I see in that past is the girl who survived." He opened the box. No more cages. No more secrets. "Ava Carter, will you marry me?" She blinked, breath catching. "You're serious?" "I'm done being afraid of what they'll say. Let the world talk, but they'll talk about my wife." Ava stared at him. Her eyes shimmered. "Ask me again," she whispered. Nate smiled. "Ava Carter, will you be my future?" She laughed through her tears. "Yes." The next day, public declaration. At a Westech press conference broadcast across national news, Nathaniel stood before a sea of reporters. He didn't speak about profits or stocks. Instead, he cleared his throat. "This may come as a surprise, but I'm here to make one announcement. The woman the world whispered about, the one they called a mistress, is now my fiancée. Her name is Ava Carter. And she's the only thing in my life I consider priceless." Reporters gasped. Cameras flashed. Social media exploded. In the crowd, Evelyn watched from her limo, lips tight. And in the distance, Stacy smashed a wineglass in her hotel suite. But in the penthouse, Ava stood in the hallway, watching the live stream. She whispered, "You did it." He turned toward the camera, as if hearing her, and smiled. "For once," he said, "I chose right." Session 7. A wedding, a will, and a woman with a gun. The city had never buzzed louder. Nathaniel West and Ava Carter. Once a secret, now a headline. And not just in gossip columns, but on the front page of Forbes and the New York Times. Billionaire CEO engaged to former escort? The real story behind the romance that shocked Manhattan. From penthouse shadows to bridal gowns. Ava Carter's rise from nobody to future Mrs. West. But behind the smiles, the gowns, and the carefully curated Instagram stories, a storm was brewing. Chelsea Atelier, bridal fitting, 10:06 a.m. Ava stood before the mirror, wrapped in white satin and hand-sewn lace. Her hair was pulled into a soft updo. Her face glowing. She looked like a dream someone once told her she wasn't allowed to have. Sasha, her best friend, clapped a hand to her chest. "God, Ava, you look like a queen." Ava turned, trying to smile, but something in her eyes trembled. She ran her fingers along the edge of the veil. "I keep thinking someone's going to pull it all away. Like it's borrowed." Sasha came up behind her, squeezing her shoulders. "It's not borrowed anymore. He loves you. You're not the girl from that night anymore." Just then, Ava's phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. 5 words. "You can wear white, but blood always shows." The phone slipped from her fingers. Westech Legal Offices, 12:45 p.m. Nathaniel paced the room like a man ready for war. Charles Dean, Westech's longtime attorney, sat at the head of the table, brows furrowed as he opened a leather file. "I need you to stay calm." "Nate," Charles began. "After that message?" Nate growled. "Someone threatened her. Again. Calm is not on the menu." "I understand," Charles said evenly. "But this may complicate things further." He pushed the file forward. "A previously unreleased codicil to your father's will. Filed in 2004. Legally binding." Nate's brow furrowed. "I thought his estate was settled years ago." "Most of it was. But this addendum was just uncovered during a routine audit. It concerns your inheritance and conditions tied to your marriage." Charles read aloud. "Should my son choose to marry a woman not of our social standing, one without pedigree, wealth, or education befitting the West legacy, he shall forfeit 51% of his shares in Westech." Ava gasped. Nate went still. It's a relic, Charles added quickly. Morally repugnant, yes, but legally enforceable unless we challenge it in court. And how long would that take? Nate asked. Months, possibly years. Nate's jaw tightened. So either I lose the company, or I lose her. Ava stepped forward. Or we wait. Delay the wedding until it's settled. He turned to her, eyes fierce. No, I waited 3 years to call you mine. I'm not waiting another day. That night, Evelyn's townhouse. Evelyn West poured herself a glass of wine, the same smug smile playing on her lips. Across from her, Stacy Gu adjusted her diamond earring. Legs crossed, elegance dripping from her like poison. It worked, Stacy said smoothly. He has to choose, his empire or the girl. Evelyn took a slow sip. He'll make the right choice. He always does. Stacy's smile faded. I'm not so sure anymore. Evelyn arched an eyebrow. Have you forgotten the plan? No, Stacy murmured, but I added a final touch. Evelyn froze. What do you mean? Stacy stood, picking up her clutch. Let's just say, if Nathaniel still chooses her over everything, he won't have a company left. Or a fiancé. West Penthouse, midnight. The rain hit the windows in rhythmic taps. Ava sat curled on the couch, sketchbook untouched in her lap. Nate stood behind her, silent for once. The city looked like a graveyard of stars outside. I won't let them take this from us, he said finally. But they're trying, she whispered, every way they know how. He stepped closer. Then we take away their power. She looked up. How? Nate held out a small, unassuming envelope. A prenup. I give up the 51% voluntarily. I walk into that marriage with nothing but my name. And I'll rebuild everything with you by my side. Her breath caught. Nathaniel, I told you, you're not my secret anymore. You're my vow. A tear slipped down her cheek. They embraced, slow, fierce, unbreakable. The next day, the gunshot. 11:13 a.m. The chapel. White roses lining every pew. A pianist playing Clair de Lune. Guests beginning to arrive. And Ava, missing. Nate paced backstage, checking his watch, his phone, his breath. Then, screams. A gunshot echoed from the back hallway. Nate ran, down the corridor, past the florals, past the stunned staff. And there, on the floor, Ava, on her knees, hands shaking, tears streaming. Stacy stood over her, a small pistol in her manicured hand, aimed directly at her chest. I warned you, Stacy hissed. You should have stayed where you belonged. Put it down, Nate ordered, voice low, deadly. Stacy's eyes darted between them. I loved you, she spat, and you threw me away for her? She never lied to me, he said coldly. She never had to pretend. Suddenly, security swarmed. The gun hit the marble floor. Stacy collapsed to her knees, laughing hysterically as they dragged her away. I was supposed to be your wife, she cried. It was supposed to be me. Ava trembled in Nate's arms. But she was safe. And alive. Later that night, the hospital. Ava sat in a private room, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea. Nate sat beside her, holding her hand with both of his. She could have pulled the trigger. Ava whispered. But she didn't, he said, and she never will again. Silence. Then he reached into his coat pocket, again. The ring. No fanfare. No audience. Just them. Raw. Real. I don't want a cathedral. Nate said. I just want you. Ava stared at him for a long moment. Then whispered. Yes. Session 8. The wedding in secret. The truth in public. 1 week later. The city was quiet, but not asleep. Somewhere between the headlines, the lawsuits, and the paparazzi stalking every corner of Manhattan, Nathaniel West made a choice. No more spotlight. No more expectations. No more rules written by people who never bled for love. If the world refused to let him marry Ava under the chandeliers of the Waldorf, then he would marry her under the stars. A rooftop vow. It was past midnight when Ava opened her eyes and found him still watching her. The air was cool. Her hospital room dim. He'd stayed all night. You okay? Nate whispered. She nodded slowly. Not afraid anymore. He kissed the back of her hand. Then come away with me. She blinked. Where? He smiled. That quiet kind of smile that only existed when he looked at her. Just upstairs. Rooftop of West Penthouse. 2 days later. It wasn't a traditional wedding. No choir. No guests. Just a pastor who owed Nate a favor. A bottle of wine from his father's private reserve. A single camera. Edwin held it steady with shaking hands. Ava wore no veil. She wore his shirt. And when Nate turned to her, dressed not in Armani but in a plain black jacket, his voice cracked for the first time in public memory. "I don't have a ring from Cartier," he said, "but I have a promise. That every morning, I'll make coffee the way you like it, burnt. That I'll remember to put your sketchbook beside the window. That when the world tries to take you down, I'll be the one holding the rope." Ava's voice trembled, but never wavered. "I may have been sold once. But love isn't something you buy. It's something you survive for. You are the storm I chose to stay in." They kissed, barefoot, with only the city skyline as their witness. Next morning, the leak. They didn't plan on the video going viral. But it did. By 9 a.m., clips of their rooftop vows were all over the internet. Nathaniel West's secret wedding exposed. No billion-dollar venue. Just real love. From escort to wife. Ava Carter marries CEO in intimate ceremony. "This is the most heartfelt wedding video you'll ever see. Grab tissues." The comments poured in. "Okay, but why am I crying? He gave up everything for her. That's not just romance. That's real. Every girl deserves to be seen the way he sees her." It was no longer a secret. And for once, Ava didn't care. Westech boardroom, same day, 3:07 p.m. Evelyn West sat stiffly at the conference table, flanked by other board members, many of them still clutching printed screenshots of the wedding video. "This is reckless," she hissed. "He married someone with no pedigree, no background, no interest in destroying him for power?" one member cut in. "Yes, we noticed." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Charles Dean, the company's lead counsel, entered holding a thick manila envelope. "This," he said, "is Nathaniel's signed prenuptial agreement. He forfeits his controlling shares. Effective immediately." Murmurs rippled through the board. But before Evelyn could smirk, Charles continued, "He's chosen to divest and transfer ownership, not to Ava, but to a foundation in her name. A nonprofit supporting women from abusive backgrounds. It's legally airtight." Evelyn went pale. "He turned a billion-dollar company into a shelter?" Charles nodded. "Into a legacy." That night, the foundation gala. The event was held in Brooklyn, inside a repurposed art gallery. No red carpet, no press, just survivors, artists, women who'd walked through fire. Ava stood on stage, wearing this simple navy gown. She cleared her throat before speaking. "I never imagined I'd speak to you from here. I used to sketch dreams because I didn't believe I'd ever live one. But today, I'm living proof that a beginning doesn't define an ending." She paused. "I'm not Nathaniel West's wife because he saved me. I'm his wife because I saved myself, and he saw me as whole even before I did." The crowd stood. Applause echoed through the rafters. Nate watched from the back, eyes glassy. The rooftop again. Back at the penthouse rooftop. They lay side by side, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. "You gave up Westech," Ava whispered. "I didn't give it up," he said. "I gave it purpose." She turned to him. "So what are we now?" He smiled, kissing her forehead. "We're what comes after the ending." Session 9. The Ghost in the Courtroom. New York Supreme Court, Midtown Manhattan. The world had celebrated their wedding. The viral video, the rooftop vows, the love story that defied wealth, class, and expectation. But now, 1 month later, Ava West was walking into a courtroom. Not to say, "I do," but to defend herself against the man who once broke her, and the system that had let him walk free. 3 weeks earlier, the lawsuit arrives. It came in a thick, cream-colored envelope, no return address, just to Mrs. Ava West. Nathaniel had opened it first. He read every word twice before Ava returned from her meeting with the foundation team. When she stepped inside their apartment, smiling and windblown, he didn't say a word, just handed her the letter. She froze, then whispered the name like it was poison. Victor Dean. Ava's past, the truth they never told. Victor had once been her mother's boyfriend. Well-dressed, polite. Everyone in Charleston thought he was a good man. But behind closed doors, when Ava was just 17, he became something else, something monstrous. She had tried to tell someone once, but no one listened, until now. Victor, now a real estate developer in South Carolina, had filed a $10 million defamation lawsuit, citing Ava's inflammatory remarks at the foundation gala. specifically her line. Some men hide behind wealth. Some wear expensive suits to cover the filth underneath. He claimed the statement had irreparably damaged his business reputation. He claimed she was using her new status to destroy innocent lives. But everyone in the room had heard the pain in her voice. Everyone except the one man who now wanted to silence her, again. The legal team enters Sophia Klein. They met her in a dim, quiet law office in Soho. Sophia Klein was young, maybe 30, but carried herself like a woman who had seen too many women like Ava. I read the complaint, Sophia said, flipping through the file. It's smoke. He's trying to scare you into silence. But we're not going to let him win. Nathaniel leaned forward. What are our chances? Sophia glanced at Ava. That depends. Are you ready to tell the truth? All of it? Under oath? Ava looked down, then nodded. Pre-trial frenzy. Evelyn's return. The day the news hit the media, Evelyn West came knocking. Literally. She showed up at their penthouse. Designer coat immaculate. Expression unreadable. I warned you, she said the moment Ava opened the door. The past always catches up. Ava didn't flinch. That's why we're not running anymore. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You could lose everything. The media will eat this alive. Investors are already panicking. Nathaniel appeared behind Ava. Then let them panic. Your reputation means nothing if I can't protect my wife. Evelyn exhaled, brushing imaginary lint from her coat. Just remember, trials aren't about truth. They're about who bleeds first. The courtroom, day 1. Ava sat in a pale blue suit. No makeup, no diamonds, just herself. Victor Dean entered flanked by 2 lawyers and smiled like the devil dressed for Easter Sunday. The press snapped photos. Headlines ran wild. Billionaire's wife accused of slandering Charleston developer. Charity queen or liar? Ava West faces $10 million trial. Did her past destroy an innocent man's career? Nathaniel sat right behind her, jaw tight, one hand on her shoulder. Sophia Klein stood before the judge, her voice calm but cutting. This case isn't about defamation, she began. It's about intimidation. It's about a powerful man scared of the truth finally coming to light. Cross-examination. Victor plays dirty. Victor's team moved fast. They introduced Ava's hospital records, her overdose, her disappearance from Charleston at 17. Suggested she was a troubled teen with a history of instability. She never filed a report. Victor's attorney argued, no police, no witnesses, no evidence. Ava's voice trembled only once on the stand. When you're 17 and scared, she said, you don't think about evidence. You think about surviving. The twist, the forgotten testimony. It was Edwin who found her. Nurse Helen Briggs. She had been working at the Charleston clinic the night Ava was admitted, 7 years ago. She remembered Ava's bruises, remembered her whispering the name, Victor, before slipping unconscious. I couldn't forget that name. Helen told Sophia. I reported it, but the paperwork got buried. Probably on purpose. Helen had moved to Florida years ago. Changed careers, but her memory had never left. She agreed to testify. Day 4, the turning point. Helen took the stand. She was a child, the nurse said, voice shaking, and no one helped her, including me. Victor's face paled for the first time. Sophia turned to the jury. This man didn't lose his reputation. He's finally facing it. Verdict day. The courtroom was silent, tension heavy. The jury filed back in. The forewoman stood, holding the verdict. In the matter of Victor Dean versus Ava West, we find in favor of the defendant. All claims dismissed with prejudice. Ava gasped. Nathaniel exhaled like he'd been underwater for days. Victor sat frozen, speechless. Expression blank. No more smiling. Later that night, home again. Ava stood on the rooftop where they had said their vows. Sketchbook in her hand, wind in her hair. Nathaniel joined her quietly, wrapping his arms around her. It's over, she whispered. He kissed her temple. It's only just beginning. She looked down at the sketchbook. A drawing. Her younger self, tattered, bruised, reaching out to her now. Whole, loved. Beneath it, she'd written, survivor, not victim. Session 10. The future they can't take. West Foundation headquarters, downtown Manhattan. 3 months later, Ava West was no longer a whispered scandal. She was a name that stood for survival, strength, and starting over. The woman who once stood barefoot in a billionaire's penthouse. unsure of her place in his world, now stood behind a podium, introducing the West Foundation's new initiative, Safe Havens, a nationwide program to fund housing, education, and trauma recovery for women escaping abuse. Hundreds of people filled the room: donors, press, survivors, and at the back, always quietly watching, stood Nathaniel West. Her husband, her shield, her witness. The opening speech. Ava wore a navy suit. No jewelry, just a pin on her lapel. A sketch of a girl holding her own hand. Her voice, though soft, cut through the silence. For years, I thought survival meant staying quiet. But healing, real healing, requires something louder than silence. It requires truth. The room went still. This foundation exists not because I'm anyone special, but because I was once invisible. And now, I refuse to let any woman feel unseen again. Applause thundered. A tear slid down Nathaniel's cheek. He clapped, eyes never leaving her. That night, back at the penthouse. The penthouse no longer felt like a cage. It was a home now. Warm lighting, a mural Ava painted on the once empty wall. Photos of them smiling, not staged, not published, just lived. They had built something real. As they curled up on the couch, Ava reached for Nate's hand. "You know what tomorrow is?" she asked. He smirked. "Our 3-month wedding anniversary?" "No, it's the anniversary of the night I sold myself to save my mother." His smile faded. "But now," she whispered, "it's also the anniversary of the moment my life really began." He pulled her closer. "You're not what happened to you, Ava," he said. "You're what you chose next." 1 year ago, Ava stood behind a velvet curtain, in a dress she couldn't afford, waiting to be sold. One night, no names, no hope, until he looked up and saw her. And everything changed. 1 year later, Nathaniel placed something on the table between them. A small box. She opened it. Inside was a simple gold chain. A single charm in the shape of a phoenix. "I had it made," he said softly, "because you rose." She held it in her palm like it was the most precious thing she'd ever owned. "And you never looked away," she whispered. Next morning, breaking news. The headlines exploded. Ava West named among Time's 100 most influential people. From auction to advocate. The story that's changing America. Nathaniel West to launch new venture with wife as co-CEO. They had tried to silence her. They tried to shame him. But together, they built something untouchable. The rooftop again. It always came back to this place. The skyline stretched around them. Quiet and brilliant. Ava leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever miss Westek?" Nathaniel laughed. "Not once. I gained the one thing I never had there." "What?" "Peace." She smiled. "And me?" He nodded. "Especially you." They stood there in the wind. No longer hiding. No longer surviving. But living. And loving. Love rewritten. Ava Carter once believed her story would begin and end in silence. A forgotten girl. A sold knight. A name no one would remember. But life, real life, doesn't always follow the script written by pain. It bends. It breaks. And sometimes, it rebuilds. In the year that followed her secret marriage to Nathaniel West, Ava didn't just survive. She transformed. She took every bruise, every scar, every whispered insult behind her back, and turned them into power. Not for revenge, but for change. She didn't want to be remembered as the girl he paid for. She became the woman who paid it forward. And Nathaniel? The man who once lived behind glass walls, guarded by billions and fear, finally learned that true wealth wasn't in numbers. It was in waking up next to someone who saw him. Not the CEO. Not the empire. Just the man. They traveled, built, healed, but more than anything, they stayed. When the world doubted them, they chose trust. When the past chased them, they stood their ground. When life demanded they choose between love and legacy, they made their own. Together. The bench in Central Park. Fall leaves swirled around their feet. Ava sat on the bench where she used to dream of a better life. Now, Nathaniel sat beside her. They weren't dressed like royalty. No guards. No headlines. Just two people. Two hands. One story, rewritten. He turned to her. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Selling yourself that night?" She looked up, eyes soft. "No," she said, "because it led me here. To the only man who never asked me to be anyone but myself." He smiled. "And you're the only woman who ever made me want to become more." They leaned in, foreheads touching, and as the city moved around them, for a moment, everything stopped. Peace, love, home, not bought, not borrowed, but earned. The end, because sometimes, the darkest beginning leads to the brightest forever. What would you sacrifice for love that's real? Tell us below. Share this with someone who believes in redemption and second chances. Thank you for watching today's CEO Love Stories. Every love story is a journey. One filled with passion, ambition, sacrifice, and unforgettable moments. Here at CEO Love Stories, we bring you the most compelling tales where power, success, and love collide. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget, like to support more incredible content. Comment your thoughts. Can love overcome power and ambition? Subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss our next breathtaking romance. CEO Love Stories, where love and power collide. Because love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. See you in the next story.